real with y'all. We got Sydney Colson addressing the CBA and basically kind of like urging a strike. Like, yeah, don't sign that. Don't sign. Don't just sign. Let's just make sure the younger players know and this and that. Like, bro, what are you doing, bro? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? This is crazy, man. These chicks.
Let's be clear about the context. Sydney Colson is a longtime WNBA veteran who has carved out a career through resilience. She's moved between teams, dealt with cuts, injuries, short-term contracts, and, by her own words on Yahoo Sports, she's been hanging on by a thread in the league for years. That's not an insult. That's her describing the reality of life as a non-max, non-franchise player in a tight roster ecosystem, and that's exactly why her comments hit the way they did. Instead of staying quiet and focusing solely on extending her own career, potentially with the Indiana Fever or elsewhere, she chose to speak publicly about the CBA process. She urged players to hold firm. She framed herself as an advocate for the middle tier. She talked about sitting with rookies for hours explaining contract structures and negotiation leverage. She referenced players who were pushed out. She didn't hedge. She leaned in. That decision is what split the reaction. Supporters see leadership. A veteran who understands the instability of the league, using her experience to educate younger players about their value and their leverage. In most labor movements, it's often the middle-tier workers, the ones who feel the squeeze the most, who become the most vocal. From that angle, her comments weren't reckless, they were aligned with collective bargaining principles. Critics, however, see risk. Publicly advocating for a hard line during delicate negotiations can complicate strategy. Some fans question whether someone fighting to stay on rosters should be the most visible voice urging resistance. Others worry about optics, especially when specific teams or internal dynamics get referenced in interviews. But here's the real tension. Players like Colson often have the most to gain, and the most to lose, in a new CBA. Max players will still be max players. Franchise stars will still have endorsement income and security. It's the veterans on short contracts, the role players, the rotational guards, who live closest to the margins of whatever agreement gets signed. So when she speaks, it isn't random. It's rooted in lived experience. The internet reaction was inevitable. Anytime a labor conversation becomes public-facing, especially in a league growing in visibility, fans will divide into camps. Some want unity and silence until a deal is done. Others respect transparency and advocacy, even if it's uncomfortable. What Colson did wasn't subtle. But it also wasn't accidental. The debate now isn't just about her comments, it's about who gets to define the tone of this CBA moment and whether speaking loudly from the middle of the roster is brave leadership or unnecessary exposure.
Yeah, man. And then they make it like, oh, y'all just don't want to see women get paid. No, we cool with seeing women get paid. Y'all just aren't crediting the person that's responsible for y'all trying to get all this money. And on top of that, y'all want everybody to ignore the fact that y'all have caused these owners to lose money for 30 plus years straight. That don't matter if you a male, female, it don't matter, brother.
You're right to separate two things that can both be true at once. The WNBA CBA concerns are legitimate, and the personal timing of speaking out can still be strategically risky. Sydney Colson isn't a max contract cornerstone. She's a veteran who has fought for roster spots in a league with only 12 teams and extremely tight benches. Add an injury history and short-term contracts, and the margin for error gets thinner. In that context, going on Yahoo Sports and publicly urging players to hold the line isn't neutral. It's a choice. From a pure leverage standpoint, teams absolutely track personality fit, locker room presence, and perceived distractions. In a league where the 10th or 11th roster spot can come down to intangibles, being labeled as complicated, fair or not, can matter. Front offices don't just evaluate on-court production. They evaluate stability. But here's the counterweight. Historically, labor movements are rarely led by the most secure people in the room. They're often driven by players who understand what instability feels like. For max stars, a bad CBA still leaves them wealthy and endorsed. For fringe veterans, it can determine whether playing professionally is financially viable at all. From that lens, Colson speaking out isn't reckless, It's aligned with self-interest and collective interest. The real tension is optics versus principle. Optically, yes, it can look risky to publicly challenge power structures when your own contract isn't locked in. Strategically, some would argue those conversations are better kept inside union rooms. But ethically, players are not obligated to mute themselves just because their job security is fragile. So was it a gamble? Absolutely. Was it irrational? Not necessarily. What makes this moment interesting isn't that she spoke, it's that she did so knowing the professional cost could land on her first. That's the part people are reacting to.